welcome to Good News Catholic Communication. I'm your host, Kisson Ferguson. And as you all saw at the beginning of the program when we were starting, we are discussing the proposed amendment to the Oath of Allegiance. And initially, we advertised that we would be having Mr. Ewart, Layne and Dr. Francis Alexis, King's Counsel, on the program. However, out of concern and out of fairness, we did get calls, and the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform would have requested if they can also have a listening ear. And as church, we are obliged to give everyone a listening ear and, to encourage healthy and meaningful debates among our society, among our people. So we would be having Dr. Francis Alexis and Mr. Ewart, Layne later on in the program. But as of right now, we were scheduled to have two persons from the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform. And we have one so far, and that's Mr. Dave Ned, who will be with us, and they will state their case as to what they think about the issue for amending the Oath of Allegiance. So good evening, Mr. Ned, and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Mr. Ferguson, and thank you so much for having us. My name is David Ned, and I am the Outreach Officer for the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform. We have been advocating since 2016 on matters relating to the Constitution and education around the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And so since 2018, we formed ourselves together in a group. Mm-hmm. And since then, we have been engaging public, engaging schools, engaging churches. We hosted a radio program. We used to have a program on GBN once a week, every Tuesday, called Your Constitution and You. And primarily with the whole focus on bringing the Constitution to the Grenadian people and having them understand that the Constitution is, in fact, a rule book that defines the relationship between the citizen and those that we elect, those that we select to govern our affairs. So we have been doing this since 2018. And now that there are proposals, again, to amend the Constitution, we have added our voices to these proposals. With every discussion that we have, we like to ground the discussion in what are the fundamentals of the issue. And the Grenadian Constitution, in its preamble, directs what those foundations are. And if we can spend just a little moment to bring to the people what the basics, the aspirations, the desires, the principles that our nation is founded upon, we find that gives a focus. It brings a different take on the discussions. So in the preamble,
so just let me get it right. So the Independent Caucus for Constitution Reform, right? Tomorrow, the House of Representatives will sit. And two of the bills, they have here two bills. Constitution Oath of Allegiance Amendment number 1, Constitution Oath of Allegiance Amendment number 2. Okay. So is it that the Independent Caucus of Constitution Reform is saying that this is not the way it's supposed to be?
Okay. We're saying that there is a process for constitution reform, and inherently, any amendments to the Constitution must be directed by the people who are the sovereign. The Constitution belongs to the people. As a matter of fact, it brings us right where I was trying to go a while ago with the preamble. In the beginning, the preamble starts by saying, whereas the people of Grenada. And it gives a list from A to F, and it describes the intent of the people, the desires, the aspirations. So for instance, Bullet number A says, whereas the people of Grenada have affirmed that their nation is founded upon principles that acknowledge the fatherhood and supremacy of God and man's duty towards his fellow man. So that's a basic concept, that we recognize God as supreme. Bullet number B says that whereas the people of Grenada recognize that inasmuch as spiritual development is of supreme importance to human existence. We're talking about spirituality. We're talking now about the relationship with the citizen and the creator. And it says here, and the highest expression thereof, it is their aspiration to serve that end with all their strength and resources. Bullet number C speaks clearly, firmly believe in the dignity of human values and that all men are endowed by the Creator with equal and inalienable rights, reasons, and conscience, and that rights and duties are correlative in every social and political activity of man, and that while rights exalts individual freedoms, duties express the dignity of that freedom. And bullet number C clearly says that your rights, your freedoms that are enshrined in the Creator does not come from a man. It does not come from a parliament. It does not come from an executive. It comes from the Creator, the Almighty God. And it's inalienable in that it cannot be separated from you. So those are the concepts that we try to bring to the fore. In its final instruction to the Constitution, it goes like this: whereas the people of Grenada desire that their Constitution should reflect the above-mentioned principles. As the first instruction to the Constitution, it must reflect the principles upon which it was founded, and then it must make provisions for the protection of fundamental rights and freedoms. And it says thereafter, now therefore, after all of these things are considered, the following provisions shall have effect as the Grenada Constitution. The following provisions, an important word that we're going to speak to later on in the discussions, hopefully.
Okay, fine. So in the interest of time, right? So you have stated the preamble. Now, is it that the bill tomorrow will contravene any of the preambles listed there?
We are saying that the bill tomorrow will contravene the provisions of the Constitution. We go to sections Schedule 1 of the Constitution that speaks to provisions of the Constitution that sections 39.5 applies to. Section 39.5 is the section that gives the authority of the Parliament to make laws in a specified manner. So any law that Parliament passes, it must be passed in this specified manner, and for any amendments to these particular sections here in Schedule 1 of the Constitution, it's what is called a referendum entrenched, meaning that you have to refer these matters to the people, the higher authority, that the Cabinet cannot make the decision, that the Governor General can't make the decision, that the Parliament can't make the decision, the Prime Minister can't make that decision. That decision must come from the people of Grenada in a referendum, and there must be a 2/3 majority in favor of the amendment.
Okay, sure. So I'm glad you brought up Section 39.5 because I did my little research. And just to read to the people as to what Section 39.5 states, I'll read the whole thing. A bill to alter this section, Schedule 1 to this Constitution, or any of the provisions of this Constitution specified in Part 1 of that schedule, or any of the provisions of the court's order specified in Part 2 of that schedule, or Section 3 of the West Indies Associated States Appeals to the Privy Council, Order 1967, shall not be submitted to the Governor for his or her assent unless A, there has been an interval of not less than 90 days between the introduction of the bill in the House of Representatives and the beginning of the proceedings in the House and the second reading of the bill in that House. B, after it has been passed by both Houses of Parliament, or in case of a bill to which Section 48 of this Constitution applies, after its rejection by the Senate for the second time. And C, the bill has been approved on a referendum held in accordance with such provision as may be in that behalf by Parliament, but not less than 2/3 of all the votes validity cast on that referendum. So you're saying Section 39(5) alludes to a referendum.
Sections 39(5) speaks to specific amendments in the Constitution. It might be interesting for us just to read Sections 38, just to give context. Sections under Part 2 of the Grenada Constitution, which speaks to legislation and the procedure of Parliament. The power to make laws is specifically given to the Parliament of the country. And Section 38 says that subject to the provision of this Constitution, Parliament may make odd laws for the peace, order, and good government of Grenada. So that's an instruction from the Constitution. Section 39 speaks to very specific provisions, very specific laws, laws that are particularly associated with Schedule 1 of the Constitution, provisions of the court's order. Those laws are included in Section 39, and the instructions are that if those laws are to be amended, those specific laws, the general laws Parliament can make. Those specific laws, if they are to be in fact amended, we have to go to a referendum.
Okay.
The question today is, are the proposals to change the oath of allegiance, is that an ordinary law that Parliament can pass, or is it one of the entrenched provisions in the Constitution that requires a higher authority and that requires being referred to the Grenadian people? A lot has been said about the mechanism, the procedure by which the Grenada Constitution was handed to us. There's a school of thought that says there was no contribution by the Grenadian people, and that the king and the British monarchy handed a Grenada Constitution to us, and that was it, and that there was no contribution from the Grenadian people. We differ in that regard, because we are aware of the contributions that was made from 1951 in the fight against the colonial masters and colonialism. We know about Sky Red, the struggles of Matthew Gary, his arrest, his detention by the British authority, and the stated intention that he intended to make Grenada an independent entity.
Okay. So what I want to go at now, right? So you're stating that the oath of allegiance is an entrenched article in the Constitution.
In the Constitution,
that would require a referendum. However, in when I went through the Constitution, as where it says which part, because it also gives the sections that 39(5) would apply to.
Would apply to, of course.
The oath was not listed there.
Okay.
So how do we go about explaining that now?
All right. So, in order to do so, we have to look at a number of sections. And we have to go primarily to a section 111 in the Grenada Constitution that speaks to the interpretation of words and phrases in the Constitution. So section 111 reads as follows, and I think we have it on the PowerPoint. Right, so Section 111, in this Constitution, unless the context otherwise requires, Commonwealth citizen has such meaning as Parliament may by law prescribe. And that's important, because in Section 111, Section 111 is telling you the meaning, but it's also saying that Parliament has the authority that they can change, that they can amend that meaning as Parliament may prescribe. That is a very important section, because it directly, it expressly gives Parliament the authority to change the meaning of the word Commonwealth. If you look, you see financial year. Financial year means any period of 12 months beginning on the 1st of January in any year, or such other date as, again, Parliament may prescribe. But if you look at Gazette, Gazette means any gazette published by the order of the government of Grenada. There is no provision for Parliament to make any changes with the Gazette, right? So if we go down sections 111, it comes to oath, and it defines what the oath is. And it says the oath includes affirmation, and the oath of allegiance means the oath of allegiance set out in Schedule 3 to this Constitution. So to see what the oath means, we now have to go to Schedule 3. You understand? It refers here that the oath of allegiance means the oath of allegiance set out in Schedule 3 to this Constitution. So if we go to Schedule 3 of the Constitution now, and the Schedule 3 is on the PowerPoint again. If we go to Schedule 3, to the top right-hand corner of Schedule 3, top right-hand corner, you see something saying Section 111. So Schedule 3 is saying that there is a relationship between Schedule 3 and Sections 111 of the Constitution. So if we could go back to Schedule 3 now, Schedule 3 defines the oath of the form of the oath of allegiance, and it says here, I, Dave Ned, do swear or solemnly affirm. And there is a difference. If you swear to Almighty God. If you make an affirmation, it's a promise to self. All right. That I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God, and the phrase "so help me God" is omitted if you're doing an affirmation, and it goes back to the preamble of the Constitution that establishes that our nation is founded on the supremacy of God. So when we swear, when we take an oath, the oath is not taken to an object. It's not taken to an abstract something. It's taken to a mortal. Right? And that mortal swears to a higher supreme being. And that being is identified and it is defined in the preamble of the Grenada Constitution that our nation is founded upon principles that acknowledge the fatherhood and the supremacy of God. So the oath is not just an abstract thing. There's meaning, it has context, and there's implications for the oath. Now, so we have spoken about Schedule 3. Now, what you're saying was that Schedule 3...
No, I'm just saying what you read.
Okay, yeah. So what you read was that Schedule 3, when you look at Schedule 1 to the Grenada Constitution, and if you bring up Schedule 1 now, when you look in Schedule 1, you don't see Schedule 3. And, right, so we have Schedule 1 up, and Schedule 1, Part 1, and it says the heading reads provisions of the Constitution referred to in sections 39.5, and we know that 39.5 is the section that authorizes a referendum. So this Schedule 1 tells us all of the provisions that require a referendum. Note the words provisions of the Constitution referred to, and then there's another word called section. So section 39 refers to those provisions. And if we go to bullet number 7, all right, if you want to read bullet number 7 for me?
Well,
you can see it?
I also,
you can see it?
I also have it here. In its application, section 111, in its application to any of the provisions mentioned in the foregoing items of this schedule.
Of the schedule, right. So sections 111, in its application to any of the foregoing, in its application to any of the provisions mentioned in the foregoing item. So if we go now to the foregoing items, item number 1 would be one of the foregoing items. Item number 1 deals with chapter 1, right? Now, any application, so any of the words, Commonwealth, citizen, parliament, etc., in sections 111, that applies to chapter 1 would be entrenched. To deal particularly with what we are talking about today, sections 111, and if you look at bullet number 2 now, can we go back to schedule 1? Okay, so bullet number 1 speaks to chapter 1 of the Constitution. Chapter 1 of the Constitution speaks to fundamental rights and freedoms, the exercise of authority of the Governor General under states of emergencies, and there is an interpretation section. That is not what we're dealing with today. What we're primarily addressing today would be bullet number, and there's one other qualification that I want to make. So item number 1 deals with chapter 1. The schedule is going to deal with chapters, and you see chapters in between. It's going to deal with sections, and it's going to deal with schedules. So those are the broad headings that we're going to talk about. In section 111, in its application to item number 2, and item number 2 speaks to sections 19. Section 19 addresses the establishment of the office of the Governor General. All right? The establishment of the office of the Governor General. The Governor General is established in chapter 2 of the Constitution, and there are 4 provisions regarding the establishment of the office of the Governor General. One of the provisions for sections 19 is, in fact, sections 20, i.e. that the Governor General is required to take an oath. That oath now becomes entrenched because in its application of sections 111, it says here, a person appointed to hold the office of Governor General shall, before entering the duties of that office, take and subscribe the oath of allegiance and the oath of office. So, before the Governor General can take her office, she must take the oath, and she must take the oath of allegiance, and she must take the oath of office. The oath of allegiance, she swears to Her Majesty the King. The oath of office, she swears to the Constitution of Grenada. And it's very important that we make the distinction. There are 2 parties to the Grenada Constitution. One is the king, and the other is the people by virtue of the contract they have called the Grenada Constitution. So you have 2 parties.
Okay. So I want to also go into, because, you know, it's not just a matter of the words, right? But changing the words from those 6 words and just inputting Grenada, what harm will it do to the country?
Okay, so we spoke initially about swearing to Almighty God. When you take an oath to His Majesty the King, we're taking the oath to a mortal person. He has life, he breathes, and he has taken an oath to the Almighty. And Grenada has affirmed that the nation is founded upon the principles that are enshrined in the Constitution as God the Creator. The suggestion now is that we swear the oath of allegiance to Grenada. But what is Grenada? What is Grenada defined as?
Well, you know, for me, I would say Grenada is the people are the citizens.
Okay. But it's interesting that you say that, because most of us think that that is what it is. But that is not what it is.
Okay.
Grenada is defined in the Constitution. And it is defined as Grenada, the island, notice, the island, land, the state, i.e., the organs of government. So the organs of government and the people, that is what comprises the state, right? So we are now, in fact, so the Grenada, the island, the state, the adjacent island, you talk about Grenada, the island, the state comprises of Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, the adjacent islands, and the territorial waters in between. Right?
Okay.
Our Constitution does not belong to the state.
Okay. So
the Constitution belongs to the people. So if our highest officials are now swearing to the state, how does that affect them swearing to the people, the higher authority? And that is issues that we have to discuss. Those are the implications of what he's speaking about. Okay. I don't know if I'm coming.
I get what you're saying, and what you're saying would require much more time.
Much more
Time. Because as you know, it was the color it was a little bit. So we decided to split up the program. But we would love to have you back sometime and probably have also both our proponents on at the same time, so we can have a really informed discussion. But what I want to ask you though, if they were to, say, amend the oath and instead of putting Grenada, put the people of the state of Grenada, would that sit better with you?
Interesting that you say so. Because the oath of office, it means that they would know, if we're changing the authority of the king and we're removing the authority of the king from the Grenada Constitution, there is absolutely no need to take an oath of allegiance. Because the oath of allegiance is only to the king. Our officials are already taking an oath of office. And the oath of office reads as follows. Right? It's defined again in Schedule 3, and it reads as follows. I, Dave Ned, do swear or solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of Governor General without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, and those words follow here, I will honor, I will uphold, and I will preserve the Constitution of Grenada. This is the Constitution of Grenada, right? Only the people can change this Constitution. So when our officials take the oath of office, they are in fact swearing to Grenada, the Constitution of Grenada. This is what defines what Grenada is. So we don't need another oath. We don't need to replace the oath, because we are removing the authority of the king, and there's no need to swear allegiance to him anymore.
But, I want to play devil's advocate here, but in essence, that oath to the king is basically just a ceremonial.
No, it isn't.
Because
it isn't. It isn't.
Because really and truly, the king does not have a direct say in the affairs of the people of Grenada.
Okay. The king does not have a direct say in the affairs of the people. All matters relating to the king are addressed by his representative that he only appoints. And he can only appoint a representative, right, to head, for instance, the Parliament of Grenada, he can only appoint that representative if we swear allegiance to him. He must have the authority to make that appointment. If he does not have an authority, if we don't swear allegiance to him, then he can't appoint anybody. And His Majesty, in sections 23 of the Constitution, says clearly, there shall be a Parliament of Grenada which shall consist of His Majesty. So it's not ceremonial. His Majesty is the head, a Senate and a House of Representatives. When you go to the executive, in sections 57, the executive authority of Grenada, and that's the executive authority, the cabinet, the permanent secretaries, the director of public prosecutions, the supervisor of elections, etc., etc. The executive authority is vested in Her Majesty. And subject to the Constitution of Grenada, the executive authority may be exercised on behalf of Her Majesty by the Governor General, either directly or through officers subordinate to him. So it's not a ceremonial. He is head of the executive. He appoints the Prime Minister. He appoints the other ministers. He assents to our laws. In section 45 of the Constitution, the laws, mode of exercise of legislative power in our Parliament, no law made by Parliament shall come into operation until it has been published in the Gazette. Who publishes it in the Gazette? Subsection 3 says, when the Governor General, subsection 2, when a bill is submitted to the Governor General for assent, in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution, he shall signify that he assents or that he will withhold assents. Those are not ceremonial things. The law that is going before the Parliament tomorrow, right, is crafted by 2 King's Council. These King's Council have sworn, they have taken a voluntary oath to the King. They're saying to the Grenadian people that don't look at the voluntary oath that we have taken to be servants of the King. And by virtue of taking that oath, we receive benefits in the courts in Grenada. Don't look at that. Close your eye to that.
Okay.
So you, who are ordinary Grenadians, who don't take an oath to the King, they're saying to you that why you want to swear to the King. But Grenadians don't swear to the King.
Okay. So, one question before you go. Now, in terms of that, you're right. You said that, yes, it was drafted by 2 King's Council. But is it right now? Can we look and see that because of the... You see, I remember in law class, when I did law, there was 2 things. There was the inferred meaning and the explicit meaning of the law. Right?
Nice, gladly bring that up.
So what I want to ask now, right? Because when you look basically at what is included in section 39.5, and it's not there, is it that we are left to infer and left up to the interpretations of the code, because laws is meant to be interpreted by the courts? So if let's say that amendment is passed tomorrow, what will be your next case of redress? Because it can be argued. Is it explicit? Is it inferred?
Okay. So you spoke about explicit. No. Can we have Schedule 1 to the Constitution up again, please? When you look at sections 1, there's an interesting development. Schedule 1. Beautiful. Now, remember I told you that Schedule 1 comprises of chapters of the Constitution. It comprises of sections and provision and schedules. Now, if you look, you're going to see Chapter 1 in item number 1. But if you go to chapter item number 5, you see Chapter 6, and what do you see? Except sections 90 and 91, right? So sections 90 and 91 are expressly excluded. You understand that, right? If you look at items number 6, chapter 8, and you look, you would see that sections 111 in its application to any of the provisions except sections 104. So that is expressly excluded. There is no other expressed exclusion in the items above. You understand? So when the Constitution speaks, it's a prescription. It tells you exactly what you can do. So sections 111 cannot be applied to sections 104. Cannot be. It's expressly removed. It cannot apply to sections 90 nor 91 because it's expressly excluded. And you're the one that's confirming that because there is inference, right? But there is no express exclusion for Chapter 1. So all of Chapter 1, the provisions for all of Chapter 1, if sections 111 applies, there is no exclusion for items number 2. Sections 19, 21, and 57. 57 has about 13 different provisions. And they apply because they are not expressly excluded.
Okay, so thank you very much. So, this is a good way to end this segment, and it gives me a very good way to introduce it for our next segment. It will come up. I look forward. I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for today. The time that you've given us.
I know it was short, but however, due to scheduling arrangements already. So, thank you very much, Mr. Ned. And we look forward to having you back sometime in the future.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll continue with the program, and we'll welcome our 2 next guests onto the program, Mr. Ewart Layne and Dr. Francis Alexis, King's Counsel. We'll take a break right now.
Diocesan t-shirts are available for purchase. Early bird prices. Regular adult t-shirt for $35. Children's t-shirt for $25. Or upgrade to a polo t-shirt for only $45. Call 473-459-4612 to place your order now. Let's live church, build community, and serve country. We are Grand Cath and proud.
Father Humphrey Wisonga, but he has been appointed as coordinator of youth ministry and spiritual director, in fact. We would like to have a full-time coordinator, but we have to look for help with that. But he is leading a group of 5 people from the parishes of Bolio, Birch Grove, and one other. And they're going to Jamaica to join dozens of other young prospective leaders to try and reimagine youth ministry. I know a number of you have been thinking to yourself, gosh, we're not getting anything. But what I always smile about, people don't seem to realize that there are some things that are happening across the world, right? And our problem with youth ministry is a problem throughout these islands. And therefore, the bishops met. I was very consoled when I heard the problem some of my brother bishops had. And so that an attempt is being made, I think it's more than an attempt, to reactivate, to model youth ministry again for the islands, for the 19 dioceses, and they will meet in Jamaica next week. So Father Humphrey, I don't have the names of the young people who are going with him, but the idea is that when they come back, they will meet again with a larger group of young people and chart a course for youth ministry. The last time we had met, I had said, well, go back to your parishes and see what you can do and then let us know what's going on. But that didn't work either. Although I must say there are some parishes in which the young people are being cared for, But we have to ask ourselves what more can we do and how best can it be done? Because the idea remains, at least the core notion, is developing missionary disciples for Grenada and the world.
Welcome back to our listeners and viewers. You are tuned into Good News Catholic Communication. Today we are discussing the proposed amendment to the Oath of Allegiance. And earlier on you heard from Mr. Dave Ned, who is saying that, it's going about the wrong process. The process is going about all wrong. We are now joined by our legal luminaries, Dr. Francis Alexis, King's Counsel, and Mr. Ewart Layne. And welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you all.
Thank you very much.
I want to start with something that we end with just on the previous segment with Mr. Ned. And he's saying that the oath is entrenched into the Constitution because of Section 111. So we'll just start there to know the entrenchment, what is entrenched and what is not. I don't know if you all mind if we start from there.
Yes. What is entrenched in the Constitution is what is mentioned in the Section 39, subsection 5. You see it on page 6, if you can go there, page 6 of the briefing paper. The numbers are at the bottom.
Yes.
You see it at the top there, bracket 5. A bill to alter this section, section 39, schedule 1 to this Constitution. The other 5 lines or so are simply saying and other items in Schedule 1, so it's an elaboration of Schedule 1. So such a bill to alter Section 39 or Schedule 1, go down to subparagraph C, will not be valid unless it is approved on a referendum. So this is telling you that a referendum approval is needed to alter Section 39 or Schedule 1. So let's go now to Schedule 1 on page 7. It's right there. Here you have a master list of the provisions whose alteration requires referendum approval. So you may call this the master list, or the referendum list, or Ewart coined the phrase, the VIP list. Good. If you're going to amend the Oath of Allegiance, you have to amend Schedule 3. You'll see it on page 8. I, Damascus Ferguson, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to. You are seeking Her Majesty, but read there instead now, His Majesty, King Charles III, his heirs and successors. The proposal is to amend this provision and this provision only. Nothing else in the Constitution is going to be changed. Instead of those mechanical words there, His Majesty, the proposal is to delete those words and substitute one word, Grenada. That's the only change. Now, the next issue is simply, do you see Schedule 3 mentioned in the master list on page 7?
Okay. So, and he brought up a very interesting point. He said, while Schedule 3 is not there, Section 111 contains, when you read Section 111, it has, speaks about the oath. So he's saying that Section 111 ties the oath as an entrenchment in the Constitution. I don't know if the legal mind could go forward and elaborate on that for us.
That tie is not a good knot. Let's read
This one there.
God bless you. Let's read Roman numeral 7. See it right there?
Yes.
Let's read it. Section 111. In its application to any of the provisions, read with me, mentioned in the foregoing items of the schedule. Is Schedule 3 mentioned in that foregoing item?
No.
It's not
Or
there.
Schedule 2.
No. We're talking about Schedule 3.
1, yes.
We're talking about Schedule. Keep your eye on Schedule 3. Go back to page 8. Schedule 3 is the one with the oath. See there?
Yes.
So we're going back now to the master list. The gentleman is telling you that clause 7, section 111 ropes in the Schedule 3 with the oath. But Schedule 3 is not one of the provisions mentioned in the foregoing items. That is as easy as pie. Let me repeat that. And I'll illustrate how it works. Schedule 3 is not one of the provisions mentioned in the foregoing items. I'll give you a next provision. Take Section 20, which is a provision that requires the Governor General to take the oath. Let's go with me through Schedule 1. Stay at Roman numeral 2. Mentioned are sections 19, 21. But 20 is not mentioned. So you can't say that paragraph 7 brings in section 20 because 20 is not mentioned. There is a reason why clause 7 is written that way. It is written that way because in section 111, there is a definition of oath of allegiance. And this Schedule 1 is entrenching by referendum provisions, some of them relating to the oath of allegiance. For example, Section 21. And Ewart will deal with that for me. But Section 20, for example, dealing with the oath of allegiance in relation to the Governor General is not one of the provisions mentioned. Or take Section 40. Section 40 requires MPs and senators to take the oath. But you will not see it here. Go to item 3. 3I3, yes, you're reading. 23, 24, 29, 30, 37, 38. And it jumps to 45. So 40 is not mentioned. So you have a double locking system here for 20 and 40. One, the oath itself in Schedule 3 is not mentioned on the list. And the oath requiring provision in Section 20 and Section 40 is also not mentioned on the list. So the case is as easy as they come. And I'll take you through two cases just now.
Okay.
When the gentleman talks about Section 111 in its application to any of the provisions mentioned in the foregoing items, still right there in Roman numeral 2. 20 is not mentioned. So this clause here cannot apply to 20. But 21 is mentioned. So unless there is something else to apply, 21 is caught by 7, unless there is something else. And this is not a matter of speculation. There is a decision of the highest court of Grenada directly on point.
Okay.
A case called Mitchell and the DPP, 1985, 32 West India Report 241. This case from Grenada dealt with a situation in which some persons were being tried for murder. Mitchell said, the system in which you are trying me for murder is unconstitutional because it does not include the Privy Council in the system, because the PRG had abolished appeals to the Privy Council. And those appeals were allowed by Section 104. If you go to VI6 there, they were allowed by 104. So he is saying, since you didn't have a referendum, you can't abolish appeals to the Privy Council. Privy Council said, no. You're speaking just like the man who was just here, because 104, you could see that's except there, is kicked out of the referendum list. So the PRG, not only the PRG, very importantly, more so, the restored Parliament in 1984, the first act it passed in 1985, one of 1985, adopted the PRG laws, including the law abolishing appeals to the Privy Council. So it's not a revolutionary case you're talking about only. You're talking about situation under parliamentary democracy. And the Privy Council said simply, because Section 104 is excluded from the master list, the VIP list, the referendum list, no referendum was needed to abolish appeals to the Privy Council.
Okay. But Dr. Alexis, I get what you're saying. However, the argument is that, being that there was no explicit exceptions here, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So, for example, you said that bullet point number 5 said chapter 5, no, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4,
Except
5.
90 and 91.
Yeah.
6, yeah, 6.
Yes. So it says except 90 and 91, and then it says except Section 104.
Yeah.
So he's saying, so the argument is that says Schedule 1 is saying Section 111, so therefore it should just be included.
Sorry?
So he's saying, okay, Section 111 is saying is there as listed under Schedule 1 in the Constitution, so therefore there is no way saying Section the oath Schedule 3 should not be included.
But Section 39, Section 5 told you. Let's go back to see what it says. This is on page 6, line 1, that a bill to alter this section and Schedule 1 to the Constitution in Clause C needs referendum support. Schedule 3 with the oath is not in Section 39. It is not in Schedule 1, and therefore no referendum approval is needed, because 39.5 is telling you which provisions require referendum approval, and it is 39 itself and those listed in Schedule 1. So if it is not listed there, it cannot come in. Keep on knocking, but you can't come in. That is the way it goes. Let me repeat that. You see, when you put questions to me like that, I too learn how to answer. It's the first time I'm answering it this way. Because if he's telling you Schedule 3, nothing says it is free from referendum approval. The answer is, you know what requires referendum approval, not by consulting an astrologer or spinning a coin. You know by reading Section 39.5. A bill to alter this section, Schedule 1 to the Constitution, or any of the items mentioned in Schedule 1, that is a bill that needs referendum approval. Because Schedule 3 is not listed here, there is nothing to kick in relation to Schedule 3, this referendum protection here. That is the way it is answered. Courts of law do not like these convoluted things. Let me refer you to another case, this time from Belize. Ewart and I were discussing it outside while you were entertaining the gentleman and leaving us out in the heat out there. In this case from Belize, called Prime Minister of Belize against Velos, the Constitution of Belize, from inception, never contained referendum requirement, never did.
Okay.
But in 1999, the legislature there passed an act called the Referendum Act, saying that in future, if you want to interfere with the Bill of Rights, you have to have a referendum. But when they passed that act, they did not comply with the requirements for altering the Constitution. Namely, they did not have, let me show it to you. They did not have 3/4 of the House of Representatives supporting it, and they did not observe the 90-day delay.
Okay.
What then was the status of that act? Because it is just as if there, in relation to Schedule 3, there is no referendum requirement. The Constitution didn't have it, and the Referendum Act didn't have it because it was not passed in accordance with the requirements for altering the Constitution. So what did the Privy Council say? Let me show you. You could see it with your own eyes. They had two options as far as they were concerned. If that referendum act was seeking to amend the Constitution and inject entrenchment, it would have been void because it did not meet the requirements for passing the Constitution. All these convoluted arguments, they tried the same thing there. Privy Council, simple. You didn't pass the act in accordance with the constitutional requirements for alteration, so it's void. Or alternatively, the Privy Council took the approach that the process of amending the Constitution could proceed in the normal way, despite the Referendum Act, whether or not a referendum was held, and regardless of its result. What they are saying here is simply this. When the Constitution sets requirements for its alteration, you cannot muddle around with those requirements, whether to extend them one way or to reduce them another way. You look at what is said by 39.5, which is telling you which provisions need referendum approval for their alteration. It's 39 itself, or it's Schedule 1. You go to Schedule 1 and it is not there, it is out. So you have it written down in the law, and I give you in addition a decision of the highest court of our country dealing with the very same issue. How do you get around that? Now, I got a letter yesterday from a political party, and it is telling me, as convener of CCR, that they take note of what we are saying, namely that the alteration of Schedule 3 does not need referendum approval. However, they are saying, nonetheless, you could have a referendum. Well, you can understand that. That's kind of old talk thing. But the point is that they are not suggesting in that letter that the Constitution requires referendum approval. That's the take-home point. I don't think I have the letter here with me.
Okay. Is that good thing?
And I could understand that. I mean, it's all talk. So you're saying, yeah, well, you don't need it, but we can have it. But in that letter, you never see them saying that referendum approval is required by the Constitution.
So I want us to take a break and then come to Mr. Layne. But before that, I have 3 questions for Dr. Francis. And it's just simple questions. So that bill is passed in Parliament tomorrow. It goes to the Senate, it's passed, goes to the Governor General, who then sends the bill. If there is a judicial review and it reaches all the way up to the Privy Council, will that bill survive, in your opinion?
We have 2 bills. Bill number 1 is the one I've been speaking to. Ewart will speak to bill number 2. First, I cannot tell you that it will not be challenged. It can be challenged. Anybody can go to court with anything. I can go to court with a motion that anybody who trespasses on my land in Mars should be sent to prison. I can do that. Secondly, however, I can tell you, Mr. Ferguson, that I do not have not even the slightest doubt. Any challenge to Bill number 1 must fail completely, because Bill number 1 is dealing with 2 sets of provisions. Schedule 3 with the oath, and it is not on the list. Bill number 1 is dealing also with provisions requiring the taking of the oath, none of which is on the master list. What are those sections? Section 20, requiring the Governor General to take the oath, it is just simply not there. Section 40, requiring MPs and senators to take the oath, I just showed you it is not there. Section 65, requiring ministers to take the oath, that is in Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is not here, and 65 is not there. So we see in CCAR that in relation to Bill number 1, there is, by the Constitution, a double emphasis that all the provisions in Bill number 1 are outside of the referendum approval loop completely. No kind of language. Take the gentleman who was here before us. He says that Section 111 brings in certain provisions. And yes, it brings in these provisions, 21. But it cannot bring in 20, 40, or 65 because they are not mentioned there. So that's my answer.
Okay.
Must fail. Bound to fail.
The next question is, the bill goes to the House tomorrow. Will it require the 2/3 of the House or the majority?
Yes. If you go to page 5 on the brief, subsection 2, section 39, subsection 39, subsection 2, the last line, subsection 2. You see there? This is telling you that a bill to alter any provision of the Constitution, anyone, needs the last 2 lines, the votes of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House.
Okay.
So this is what will apply because the bill is outside the loop of the referendum requirement. So it is cut by 39 too. You must have, and we have 15 members in the House, 2/3 of 15 is 10.
Okay. Okay. Interesting debate.
The
tomorrow.
government has 10, and the independent member, Honorable Peter David, has made a very strong statement, did so yesterday in public, saying he is supporting this bill, and he can't understand what is all this fuss about. So he is going to vote for it. So that's 11.
Okay. And one question before we go to the break, Dr. Alexis. I want to say that I want to gain immunity here because I don't want to misquote. I don't want to sit after.
Granted.
Dr. Alexis, open to clear the air because research has shown, when research in 2016, Dr. Alexis advised Grenada the oath of allegiance could then only be changed by a bill that is referred to the people. Today, almost 9 years later, he's saying the oath can be changed without going to a referendum.
2 things. One, I just referred you to that case from Belize, where the Privy Council is indicating, even though a provision of the Constitution does not require referendum approval strictly, it is not a sin to put it to a referendum, what I call a package deal. And my authority for that is the case of Belize, which I just read and I explained it to you. That's the first thing. In other words, interpreting the Privy Council in Belize, that you put a provision to a referendum need not mean that it requires referendum approval. And the Privy Council is explaining that throughout this case, the Belize case.
Okay.
Secondly, the referendum in 2018 included, again, the CCJ bill, but that referendum in 2018 said nothing about the oath of allegiance. Nothing. It didn't include that. The oath was included in the CCJ bill in 2016, but it was not included in 2018. What does that mean? Are we saying that when we didn't include it in 2018, that we were recognizing, no, it didn't need referendum approval, which is a fact? The Privy Council is telling us in that Belize case, what decides the issue is, what does the Constitution say? You have to come back to what the Constitution says. And I was walking you through to what the Constitution says. Namely, you go back to the master list. The reference list is not what happened in 2016 or 2018. When they talk about 2016, they selectively leave out 2018 because the referendum, the CCJ bill in 2018 did not say anything about the oath of allegiance. Okay. So you are seeing from this then, it was referred to in 2016 as part of a package. It was not referred to in 2018. So that doesn't decide the case one way or other. What decides the case is this magic list here. That is what decides the issue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis Alexis. It's good to know I will not be getting a letter. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, you are watching a Tete special Tete program. It's basically we are discussing the proposed amendments to the Oath of Allegiance. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll be chatting with Mr. Ewart Layne about the second bill of the Oath of Allegiance. So we'll take a break, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, listeners and viewers. If you are just joining us, we are discussing here right now with Dr. Francis Alexis and Mr. Ewart Layne about the proposed amendments to the Oath of Allegiance. And earlier on, we heard Dr. Francis Alexis give some very interesting and very convincing arguments.
Thank you.
And we'll now go on to Mr. Ewart Layne to continue discussing Bill number 2 and to start Bill number 2. As it is, and it's a bill for an act to amend Schedule 3 to the Constitution and Schedule 1 to the Court's order so as to change the Oath of Allegiance. Mr. Layne?
Thank you for having me as part of the CCR delegation headed by Dr. Alexis, the convener of CCR.
Pleasure.
Yes, so as Dr. Alexis mentioned and you alluded to, there are two bills which are going to the Parliament tomorrow. Both aim to do essentially the same thing, namely to amend, alter, whatever term you use, the oath of allegiance set out in Schedule 3. So hopefully, as from Emancipation Day, hopefully, I think that's the thinking, the senior officials of the state, namely members of parliament, members of cabinet, the Governor General, they will no longer be taking an oath to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, but they will be taking an oath to Grenada. I think what it will mean is that the oath that they previously took will become invalid as of the end of the 1st of August or thereabout, and that they will have to either take a new oath, or if they don't take it within 7 days, then they will be deemed to have taken it. So we are hopefully about to make history after all of these years, certainly 51 years of independence. We are about to make history in Grenada. So there are two bills, as Dr. Alexis mentioned. The first bill, as he said, in a sense, it locks out the oath twice. It's like if we try to enter this room and you have a door here and a door outside, the first bill locks out the oath in both doors. The second bill relates to the taking of the oath with regard to Section 21, 35, and 83 of the Constitution. And if you go back to page 6 that Dr. Alexis was taking you through, the master list or the referendum list or the VIP list, yes, you will notice that Section 21 is mentioned there. You have 19, then 21. Yeah? Now, Section 21 is that section of the Constitution that requires the acting Governor General to take the oath. Section 35 is also mentioned on your master list. I think Section 35(4) requires the supervisor of elections to take the oath. And then Section 83 is mentioned on the list there. Section 83 is the first section in Section 7. Section 6 is the first section in Section 6. So, and as you will notice, it says Section 6, except these are the two, 90 and 91. So 83 is included on the list. And 83 requires members of the Public Service Commission to take the oath. Bearing that in mind, an argument could be made that by virtue of Section 111, when the oath, which is part of Section 111, is mentioned or is required to be taken by an official who is the subject of one of these deeply entrenched sections of the Constitution, for example, 21, 35, and 83, the question could be asked whether, when the oath is mentioned in those sections which are deeply entrenched, whether by virtue of that, it is also deeply entrenched. Yeah? So that question could be asked. And that's why we thought, out of an abundance of caution, to have two separate bills. Bill 1, which, beyond a shadow of doubt, is not open to challenge. Bill 2, on which an argument could arise. Because that term there, Section 111, in its application to any of the foregoing provisions, one could argue that Section 111, which contains the oath, it is applicable to Section 21 because the acting Governor General is required to take the oath. It is applicable to Section 35 because the supervisor of election is required to take the oath. It is applicable to 83 because members of the Public Service Commission are required to take the oath. So that's why we thought separate it out. Okay. If somebody wants to challenge Bill 2, so be it. We don't believe that a challenge could be successful. And as Dr. Alexis has assured the government, if there is any challenge, himself and King's Counsel Ferguson stands prepared to basically either assist the government or we enter a intervening brief as it is mentioned in the procedure. So why don't we believe that a challenge will be successful? For several reasons. One, the Constitution, Section 111, contemplates only one oath. Yeah? And it says that that oath, by virtue of not including Schedule 3 on the master list, it says that that oath could be changed by the Parliament by special majority. Yeah? So, if you're saying one oath could be changed by special majority, and one oath cannot be changed except a referendum, yeah? Then in essence you are saying that you can have two different oaths. And the Constitution does not contemplate that. Section 111 speaks about the oath, and it speaks about the oath in Schedule 3. Yeah? So if you alter Schedule 3, that is the oath. So that's the first point. But the more important point is this. Take Section 35, Supervisor of Election, and Section 83, Public Service Commission. What is the mission of Section 35? It is to ensure that you have a supervisor of elections who is independently appointed. It says appointed by the Governor General in their own deliberate judgment, who has certain protections, who has certain quote-unquote privileges. It sets out to ensure, to protect and to guarantee the integrity of the supervisor of elections and thereby the integrity of the electoral process in Grenada. That's the mission and function of Section 35. The mission, function, and purpose of Section 83 is to have an independent public commission with certain protections, appointed in a particular way, in a particular independent way with certain membership, who can stand as a buffer between public servants as individuals and the executive branch of government. That is the mission and that is the purpose. So, if you amend the oath, Section 111 will continue to read the same. Sorry, not Section 111. Section 21 will continue to read the same. Section 35 will continue to read the same. Section 35.3 reads now. (35.4), sorry. 35.3. A person shall not enter upon the duties of office of supervisor of elections until he has taken and subscribed the oath of allegiance and the oath of office. When you change the oath in Schedule 3, you not interfere with a single word in this section. It will read the same. They have to take the oath of allegiance. It says the same thing. You are not altering that to say that they're not taking any oaths. You're not doing that. But the Constitution tells us what is the oath of allegiance. It is the oath in Schedule 3. And the procedure set out in Section 39 also tells us how the oath of allegiance can be altered. Namely, by 2/3 majority in the House of Representatives. And we know that because it is not included in the master list.
Okay.
So if you amend the oath, it does not in any way, and certainly it does not in any disproportionate way, interfere with the functions, the integrity, the mission, the purpose of Section 35, which deals with the supervisor of elections. It does not interfere with it. Yeah? And there's case law to the effect that a case law which recognizes that there may be alterations to certain laws which may touch and concern certain provisions in the Constitution, and in this case, deeply entrenched provisions like Section 35. When those situations arise, you look to see what can be legitimately done, i.e., in this case, you can legitimately alter the oath. You ask the next question, does altering the oath that the supervisor of election has to take, does it go beyond what you can legitimately do, namely alter the oath by changing the wording? The answer is no. Does it interfere in any way with the functions and the integrity of that office? The answer is no. And that is fundamentally why, and there are other reasons, but this is fundamentally why we believe that a challenge to Bill 2 cannot be sustained.
Okay, some very, very important information here. And I'm glad you brought it up. I know we are almost out of time. We do have another engagement at 5. But, however, the oath, right? There is one, the idea that amending the oath will muddy the waters, as from one writer puts it, an excerpt from No Grenada. An oath is simple and abstract concept of Grenada, as the proposed change would make it, does not make our politicians beholden to these principles. With such wording, politicians become free to engage in whatever behavior they may please, so long as they construe it as being in the best interest of the abstract concept of Grenada. It would imply no loyalty to our constitutional order, our democracy, or to our institutions. Simple loyalty to whatever politicians personally interpret as the best for Grenada. This, of course, may indeed not be what is in the best interest of the people. I see Dr. Francis Alexis is ready to respond. But these are some of the arguments that we are getting out there. And just to wrap it up, probably some reassurance can be given that this is not what it's about. I don't know who would like to respond.
Yeah, we have 2 points among others to respond to that. One, nothing is clearer in the Constitution, nothing, than the word Grenada. The word Grenada appears 226 times in the Constitution. All the powers of the state are vested in relation to Grenada. Let's go, for example, to Section 57. The executive authority of Grenada is vested in Her Majesty. This is the single largest block of powers of the state, the executive authority. It is known to be of Grenada. We can do the same thing with Parliament, with the judiciary, with the Bill of Rights. It's the same thing. So if there is one expression which is used more than possibly any other in the Constitution, is Grenada. Secondly, we don't live in a vacuum. No island is separate and apart from the main. And there are several other countries near us which have done exactly what we're asking to do here. St. Vincent, they changed the law of the allegiance from the king to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In St. Lucia, they did the same thing. In Belize, they did the same thing. In Jamaica, they did the same thing. And these are monarchies like us. They changed the oath from His Majesty, Her Majesty, whoever, to Jamaica, Belize, St. Lucia, St. Vincent. To say nothing about the republics around us. In Barbados, you take an oath to Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Dominica. So we're not reinventing the wheel. Okay. Nothing to be scared about. So I answer in relation to the use of the word Grenada in the Constitution and by reference to what has been done in other countries. So nothing to worry about. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. You know, I must say that the conversation in both ends have been very intriguing. I look forward. It goes to the House of Representatives tomorrow, the lower house. So I'm not too sure as to when it goes to the upper house. But I'm hoping that probably before it goes to the upper house, we may have you guys back. Also, Mr. Dave Ned, and we have some very intellectual conversation. I'm just sorry that the way it happened, we were not able to have everybody on because it is very good when we can promote and encourage healthy debate as we see what is going on in our society these days. It's more people rather resort to the violence. But when we have the healthy debates, it helps us put into context as to how we can resolve issues, how we can make compromise, and so on. So listeners and viewers, I'm your host, Kisson Ferguson. Thank you for my guest today. Earlier on, Mr. Dave Ned, Mr. Ewart Layne, and Dr. Francis Alexis, King's Counsel. Stay with us at the top of the hour at 5 p.m. We will have the memorial mass for Father Kufre's dad, who died back in Nigeria. We have a memorial mass at the cathedral at 5 p.m. And tomorrow evening, we have conversation with Bishop. And on Sunday, we would be at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. So thank you for joining us today. I do hope that the conversation was enlightening. I do hope that it would have brought some balance to those who are for and against. It would have brought some balance in your thought process and thinking. Also, thank you to
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson, having ceased here. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you. I look forward to having you back early next week.
Okay, nice.
So, thank you for being with us today, listeners and viewers. You're watching special Tete.
This was live.
Thank you.